It all kicks off with Talia's Ross getting showered with praise after being elected as the new president of the United States. But his daughter Betty still hasn't forgiven him for his past mistakes. His team tells him they've tried reaching out to her multiple times, but she's not answering during his acceptance speech. Ross says they've just been through one of the most pivotal elections in the country's history. He brings up the chaos, from half of humanity disappearing to that massive celestial thing popping up in the ocean. Times have been uncertain, and the only way to move forward is by sticking together. Not long after, the media wastes no time digging into his rocky past, dragging him for his Hulk obsession and the shady things he did back in the day. But Ross insists he's a different man now. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Sam Wilson is watching the broadcast. He sees Ross actually made it to the presidency. Word is during a press conference, Ross hinted that his relentless hunt for Hulk not only defined his career but also cost him his relationship with Betty. Fast forward 5 months, Oaxaca, Mexico. Joaquin Torres is working alongside Captain America, Sam Wilson, on a classified mission. They've been sent by President Ross himself to stop the theft of a mysterious container. Orders are crystal clear: no one can know what's inside. Cap burst into the meeting spot where the buyer is supposed to show up and immediately throws down with the guards on duty. Securing the package is the priority, but things take a turn when they realize Serpent Leader is also in the mix. The villain, oozing arrogance, threatens to kill a priest and a group of praying priestesses. Mocking their faith, he sneers that he's not here for prayers. He wants the priest to tell him where the buyer is. When the priest refuses, the order is given: wipe them all out before he can follow through, though. A commanding voice cuts through the tension. Captain America, no hesitation. Serpent Leader orders his men to take him down while he secures the package. Sam jumps into action, taking out the enemy soldiers with ease. Watching from above, Joaquin Torres quickly spots Serpent Leader making off with the package and alerts Sam, who takes off after him. Determined, Cap confronts Serpent Leader, warning him that his buyer never showed up. With a smirk, he suggests finding better clients, but the villain, unfazed, says that's not his problem. Sam's got a bigger one. One of his men is ready to take him on. Too bad for him, his so-called warrior is no match for Captain America. Meanwhile, Joaquin Torres manages to recover the package, locking in the mission success. On the other hand, President Ross visits the grave of Karen Lee Ross, keeping a promise he made to his daughter Betty. Their relationship is still broken, but he cares about her deeply and in his own way is trying to make things right. His assistant Layla asks if he's talked to Betty yet, but Ross sighs and admits he hasn't. Even though he's changed, she still doesn't trust him. Plus, he's about to hit his first 100 days in office and needs to lock down a crucial treaty. At the same time, Captain America pieces things together and figures out that the buyer had planned to double-cross Serpent Leader. The guy paid $50 million to make sure the container was secretly rerouted to Japan, where he was supposed to collect it. Later on, Sam Wilson meets up with Joaquin Torres, who asked for advice on becoming a worthy successor to the Falcon. Mantle help him. Sam takes him to meet Isaiah Bradley, hoping he can train under someone who represents what it means to be a real hero. No super soldier serum required. During training, Sam gets a call from President Ross. He steps away to answer and Isaiah watches, clearly unimpressed when Sam comes back. Isaiah doesn't hold back. He calls him out for taking orders from Ross, reminding him of the president's past actions. But Sam explains that he's not blindly following orders. Staying close to the White House means he can keep an eye on Ross and protect people if things go sideways. Plus, he's got an ally inside, someone who will warn him if Ross pulls anything reckless. After their talk, Sam mentions that he's been invited to the White House to be recognized for the mission, with Joaquin as a thank you. He invites Torres to come along and encourages him to wear his own suit, saying it'd be an honor to have him there. After hesitating a bit, Isaiah agrees. That night, Sam, Joaquin and Isaiah arrive at the White House. As they walk through the halls, Isaiah can't help but throw in a sarcastic comment about how weird it feels to be inside the Beast's house. Before moving on, the three of them snap a selfie to mark the moment, completely unaware that security cameras are capturing every detail of their arrival. A little later, Sam is called into President Ross's office. Ross thanks him for recovering the container, saying it'll help finalize the treaty he's been pushing for. Then out of nowhere, he drops a bombshell. He wants Captain America to help rebuild the Avengers. Sam doesn't even flinch before reminding him that he was the one who tore the team apart in the first place, so putting them back together won't be easy. But Ross insists it has to happen. He argues that the Avengers represent the nation, and without them, half the population wouldn't have made it through the last few crises. He asks Sam to think it over before he leaves. Ross introduces him to Japan's Prime Minister, and they pose for a quick photo. As Sam turns to go, the president leaves him with one last thought. Maybe he should consider working alongside him for the future of the nation. Later that night, President Ross gives a speech to the most influential figures in the room. With a solemn tone, he declares that the celestial mass has emerged from the ocean, and that after decisive action, they've made the most significant discovery of the modern era. He explains that the material they found is even stronger than vibranium. Its name is adamantium. He then reveals that the recovered container held a portion of this valuable metal, and that, thanks to the successful mission carried out by two exceptional men, Joaquin Torres and Captain America Sam Wilson. They now have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The future of the international community depends on what they do with this discovery. If nations agree to work together, adamantium could be distributed fairly, ensuring benefits for everyone. But in the middle of his speech, gunfire erupts, throwing the event into chaos. Out of nowhere, Isaiah Bradley opens fire, shocking everyone. Guests and officials scatter, running for cover while security rushes to contain the situation.
Isaiah!
Without hesitation, Sam and Joaquin chase after Isaiah. But they're not the only ones. A police squad is right on his heels. Eventually they corner him. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Sam pleads with him not to run, warning that if he does, things will only get worse. He begs him to surrender peacefully. With no other choice, Sam heads straight to President Ross. He finds him in a room surrounded by agents, but his priority is fighting for Isaiah. Seeing Sam's determination, Ross dismisses the agents, though he allows his security advisor, Ruth, to stay. Sam defends his friend, insisting there's no way Isaiah acted on his own. He suggests someone may have manipulated him, but Ross, stone-faced, replies that maybe he did act on his own, and that Sam needs to stop being blind. Just because they're friends, Ruth chimes in, adding that Isaiah wasn't the only one firing shots. Secret Service and the military also opened fire. Everything points to a perfectly coordinated terrorist attack. Sam pushes back, saying Isaiah didn't even know where he was when they arrested him. He asks Ross to let him help with the investigation, but with a cold, detached tone. The president tells him he's already sacrificed too much for this country, and he's not about to risk anything more. That's when Ruth drops an uncomfortable truth. The real reason Isaiah might have acted this way, she reminds Ross that he was the one who kept Isaiah locked up for years, subjected him to inhumane experiments, and treated him like a lab rat. Even so, Sam refuses to believe his friend is guilty. Determined, he tells Ross he'll accept the offer he made earlier and work with him to get to the truth. But Ross shuts him down immediately. Ashley, he makes it clear the offer expired the moment his friend tried to kill him. He adds that Sam shouldn't even be involved in this because he's not Steve Rogers. With nothing left to say, Ross gives Ruth full authority over the investigation. Then, with a dismissive wave, he signals for Sam to leave. Just as he's stepping out, Ross throws out a cold, condescending "son." And that word hits Sam harder than any accusation. Not just because of the tone, but because of what it means. A reminder that in Ross's eyes, he's still someone who can be spoken down to. Sam Wilson heads over to see Isaiah Bradley, determined to find out what really happened. When they meet, Isaiah swears he'd never do something like that. He doesn't even understand why he acted the way he did that night. With a tense look, he explains that his day was completely normal. He stopped by the barber shop, picked up his suit, and then went with them to the White House. But from the start, he had a bad feeling about it. He hesitated before going. He remembers everything clearly. When they arrived, they took the selfie. But then something weird happened. His phone just stopped working. After that, they were escorted to the East Room. And the next thing he knew, he was sitting in the park with no memory of how he got there. Sam listens carefully and reassures him he believes in his innocence, and they'll find out the truth. But Isaiah, resigned, tells him that guilty or not, there's no way out this time. He knows they'll convict him and he'll spend the rest of his days locked up. If Sam really wants to help, the only thing he can do is walk away. Meanwhile, Ruth interrogates the agent who let Sam speak with Isaiah. At the same time, Sam and Joaquin start piecing things together and realize Isaiah was manipulated, using some kind of auditory control, possibly through hidden signals and music. Figure out something similar happened to the snipers who opened fire at the White House. On her end, Ruth reaches the same conclusion, after reviewing some classified reports. Later, Sam talks with Joaquin and lays out a troubling theory. Someone wanted them at the White House that night. Why would they hire Serpent Leader if the buyer was never going to show up? Was the whole thing a setup just to get them there? Everything points to the buyer watching them from the very beginning. Intrigued, Sam orders Joaquin to dig deeper into Ruth, the president's security advisor. But just as he finishes the call, a sudden attack cuts his thoughts short. Bullets fly straight at him. The shooter is Gustavo Fring. With lethal precision, he fires, and believing he's finished the job, grabs Sam's phone and reports that the target has been eliminated. Confident in his success, he prepares to send proof of the kill. What he didn't expect: Captain America is always one step ahead. In a split second, Sam charges at him. Frank, surprised but still composed, smirks and says his buyer predicted this. If Captain America survived the grenade, there was a 75% chance he'd try to talk first. And as always, he was right. Without missing a beat, Ring gets up and lands a punch on Sam, kicking off a high-speed chase. With every attack, he mocks him, claiming that without his gear, he's helpless, but he underestimates Cap's instincts. In a sharp move, Sam blindsides him, delivering a brutal hit that leaves Spring badly injured. Before taking his last breath, Spring chuckles bitterly with a weak voice. He tells Sam he did a good job taking him down, but he's not gonna like what comes next. Meanwhile, in a completely different setting, President Ross is meeting with world leaders, trying to finalize the adamantium treaty. But things get tense fast. The leaders question how they're supposed to trust his leadership when he doesn't even have control over his own country. The room grows colder when someone points out the missing piece. Japan's prime minister, a key player in the deal. And yet he's nowhere to be seen. His absence says it all. Japan isn't willing to sign. With uncertainty in the air, the international leaders decide to put negotiations on hold. They warn Ross if he doesn't regain Japan's trust, they'll move forward without him. The pressure mounts, and the stability of his administration hangs by a thread. Joaquin shares what he's found out about Ruth with Sam. She was born in Israel and trained in the Red Room, which means she's a black widow. That's why he warns Sam not to underestimate her or get in her way. Later, while reviewing the footage from that night, they discover something strange. Isaiah had Ross in his sights, but for some reason chose not to take the shot. That alone raises red flags. Even more suspicious is the possible involvement of Samuel Stearns. Curious, Joaquin digs into the databases and traces Stearns' last call. It came from a location called Camp Echo 1. With this new lead, Sam tells him to get ready. This time they're going in together. Meanwhile, Ruth heads to Isaiah's location to meet with an agent. But when she arrives, she witnesses something disturbing. The same agent who let Sam in has systematically taken out all the snipers in the area. Then, without hesitation, he turns the gun on himself. His radio is still playing an eerie tune on repeat. Seeing this, Ruth makes an immediate decision. She's moving Isaiah to a secure location on the other side of the world. President Ross is en route to Japan when he's informed that Sam and Joaquin have left their base. Wasting no time, he orders them to be intercepted at any cost. Meanwhile, Cooper, the warden from Isaiah's old prison, tries to contact the president, but the call takes a chilling turn. A gunshot rings out, and then over the line, a voice cuts through, a voice Ross knows all too well. Samuel Stearns, with his usual calculating tone. Stearns reminds Ross of a melody that should sound familiar. Then coldly he calls Ross out for leaving him to rot in that prison. But now he's the one making the decisions. He promises that what's coming next will be even worse. By the time it's over, the whole world will hate Ross. Especially his daughter Betty. Alarmed, Ross immediately contacts Ruth, who is still in the middle of transferring Isaiah. He orders her to drop the mission and head to Camp Echo 1 instead. Things have escalated dangerously. Meanwhile, Sam and Joaquin arrive at the camp, navigating through layers of traps. But when they finally get inside, they're met with eerie silence. No prisoners, just a sense of complete abandonment. As they push forward, they uncover something even more unsettling. A hidden lab, a research facility operating inside what was supposed to be a prison. That's not just unusual, it's deeply suspicious. Digging deeper, they find records confirming that Isaiah was once held there. It only raises more questions. Back in Japan, Ross finally meets with the Prime Minister. He pushes the idea that sharing adamantium with the world is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But the Prime Minister isn't convinced. He's received some troubling intel. Ross's real plan was to steal the metal from the container. Ross forces a tense smile and tries to dismiss the accusation. He argues that if he had really wanted to take the adamantium for himself, he never would have sent Captain America to retrieve it. But the Prime Minister doesn't budge. With a firm tone, he tells Ross that Japan won't be part of his treaty, and if Ross is thinking about taking matters into his own hands, he'd better tread carefully. As Sam keeps searching through the lab, he comes across an unsettling note. 3 pills a day do not exceed the dosage. Something about it doesn't sit right. Meanwhile, Joaquin continues digging into the music used for mind control. He discovers that the song Mr. Blue contains a hidden frequency designed to manipulate those who hear it. Using some quick thinking, he alters the signal, effectively neutralizing its effects. That's when the mystery buyer finally steps out of the shadows. Samuel Stearns, no hesitation. He outright admits that he was the one who hired Serpent Leader to steal the container, but his real objective, to kill Ross. His voice, filled with resentment, hardens as he recounts his story. He tells Sam that Ross threw him in prison without trial, and after the gamma radiation accident left his brain permanently altered, the government secretly used him for 16 years. Ross, ruthless as ever, exploited his intelligence to climb his way to the presidency. The whole time he fed him the same empty promise. Once he had power, he'd set him free. The second Ross got what he wanted, he abandoned him without a second thought. Sam tries to reason with him, telling him his actions are dragging Isaiah into this mess, and that if he keeps going down this path, more innocent people will get hurt. But Stearns won't budge in his mind. Ross is beyond redemption. Stopping now would be the real mistake. Without warning, he uses his mind control to turn a squad of soldiers against Sam and Joaquin before calmly making his exit. The two heroes fight with skill, taking down soldier after soldier. The wave of enemies never seems to end. That's when Ruth crashes into the scene. She doesn't want to get involved, but now she has no choice. She moves like a precision weapon, cutting through the attackers with lethal efficiency. Her skill leaves no doubt she's a Black Widow. With the threat neutralized, the three of them retreat fast. Suggests that if Stearns escaped recently, he can't have gone far. They need to set up a perimeter and track him down. But before they can act, the soldiers guarding the perimeter surround them, arresting them under direct orders from President Ross. Sam and Joaquin already know what's coming. The second the soldiers hear the music, their demeanor shifts instantly. Stearns has taken control, taking advantage of the distraction. Ruth frees them and together, they escape before the situation spirals even further out of control. Meanwhile in Japan, Ross makes a drastic decision. If he can't convince them to share the adamantium, he'll just take it by force. His agent Taylor warns him of the consequences. He tells him straight invading Japan would trigger a war beyond anything they can imagine. But Ross isn't listening anymore. His mind is set back in the States. Sam, Joaquin and Ruth turn to an unlikely ally. Serpent Leader. Once they track him down, Sam asks to speak with him alone. With a firm voice he reminds him last time they met. Serpent Leader told him he'd find the man who wasted his time. That man was Samuel Stearns. Intrigued, Serpent Leader agrees to talk, but only on one condition. He wants total unity. Sam, out of options, agrees to hear him out. And that's when the truth finally comes to light. Serpent Leader reveals that his old unit found Stearns years ago. Seeing his condition, they prescribed him a specific dosage of medication to keep his mind stable, but Ross deliberately increased the dosage to keep Stearns under his thumb, using him as a tool for his rise to power. Just like everyone else, he fed him the same lie. When he became president he'd set him free, but as always Ross lied. That's not all. Ross funded Serpent Leader through a secret bribe fund, and now out for revenge, Stearns has been playing the long game, setting everything in motion with one goal in mind: forcing Ross to start a war, ensuring his total downfall. But the most alarming piece of it all, Stearns has developed a technology that allows him to control anyone. With that revelation, Sam knows he can't waste another second. He heads straight for the White House. It's time to confront President Ross. President Ross is hit with a direct question. Has he been feeling different lately? The truth is unsettling. Stearns is controlling him. According to the records, Ross visited Camp Echo 1 multiple times. Pressed for answers, Ross finally comes clean. His health was in critical condition. His heart was failing and no doctor could figure out why. Stearns was the one who found the cause, and with it the solution: a set of pills that are keeping him alive. In exchange, Ross granted him the lab at Camp Echo 1. He couldn't risk losing his only hope of survival. But there's more. After the destruction caused by Hulk, someone had to take the fall and Stearns became collateral damage. And despite everything Ross has done for the country, the one person who matters most, his daughter Betty, has never forgiven him. That's why he had to hold on to prove he could still be a good man. Conversation is abruptly cut short. An urgent report comes in. 2 agents, brainwashed by Stearns' music, have opened fire on the Japanese fleet. Joaquin managed to disable the signal, but the damage is done in crisis mode. Ross orders Sam and Joaquin to defend the Japanese forces and stop them from retaliating with military action. Desperate to contain the conflict, Ross contacts the Japanese Prime Minister, insisting the troops were under mind control, but without revealing who's really behind it. The Prime Minister doesn't trust him and ignores his plea. Meanwhile, Stearns tightens his grip on Ross's mind. His calculated tone, he whispers that the pills are finally showing progress, but there's something deeper at play: anger. All that resentment Ross has tried to bury is still there, burning inside him, eating away at him. He doesn't need the pills, he just needs to embrace who he really is. But they both know the truth. Ross will never stop taking them, and that's the price of his resistance. Out on the battlefield, Sam and Joaquin fight to stop the mind-controlled soldiers, but at the worst possible moment a missile is fired. But luck isn't on their side. Joaquin takes the hit and falls into the ocean. From the base, they inform Sam that a rescue team is being deployed to find him. Knowing he can't afford to stop, Sam pushes forward and manages to prevent the conflict from escalating into full-scale war. Finally, the Japanese Prime Minister is told that Captain America saved his life, preventing an international disaster. Days later, Sam visits Joaquin in the hospital. Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, is there too. With a serious tone, he steps forward to offer support. He tells Sam not to blame himself, that everything will be okay. Then the inevitable subject comes up. Steve Rogers. Sam admits that he feels like everything is falling apart. Joaquin is injured, Isaiah is still locked up, and even though he had Stearns in his grasp, the guy slipped away. Maybe Steve made a mistake handing him the shield. But Bucky doesn't see it that way. With conviction, he reminds Sam, Steve didn't make a mistake. He gave him the shield because he knew Sam was the only one worthy of being Captain America. Even with the serum, Steve could always save the people he loved most. The burden was never easy, but that doesn't mean it wasn't worth carrying. With those words, Bucky heads out. He's got a flight to catch. The pill Stearns gave Ross contain gamma radiation, which his body absorbs at an alarming rate, meaning he constantly needs more to get them. He reaches out to a captain, but before the deal goes through, Stearns takes matters into his own hands. Using his advanced technology, he triggers a cardiac arrest, killing the man instantly. Later, Ross finally gets through to his daughter Betty. This time she picks up and apologizes for not calling after the White House attack. Hoping to rebuild what's left of their relationship, Ross invites her out just like they used to. Betty agrees, giving Ross a rare moment of happiness. Afterward, Ross addresses the public, reminding them that when he took office, he promised to secure absolute peace. Now he claims he's about to fulfill that promise, as the treaty that will seal that commitment is finally being signed. Meanwhile, Stearns meets with Sam to discuss a delicate matter. He asks him to guide a man consumed by bitterness, someone standing at the edge of the abyss. During their talk, Stearns mentions that Sam ruined his plan in the ocean, but he still has one last move. He controls Ross through the pills. Sam counters, saying that someone's already working on the situation, but Stearns shakes his head and warns that Ross, twisted by his own ambition, is about to do the same thing to someone else. During Ross's speech, the press corners him with questions about the conflict with Japan, visibly rattling him at that moment. Breaking news comes in: Stearns has been captured. Before he's taken away, he leaves a chilling message. Now the world will see who Ross truly is. The pressure and years of bottled-up rage finally explode. In a violent outburst, Ross begins to transform into a towering crimson-skinned beast. Catching his own reflection, he barely recognizes himself. His fury takes over completely. With no control, he lashes out, unleashing unstoppable destruction. Captain America steps in, leading Ross to the place where he used to meet with Betty, hoping it'll bring him back to his senses. He tries to reason with him, telling him to stop and face Stearns, but the Ross they knew is gone. What's left is pure uncontrollable rage. The only option: fight. The battle is brutal in his monstrous new form. Ross is an unstoppable force, his raw power overwhelming. In the chaos, he even manages to rip Captain America's suit apart. Then an explosion. But neither of them goes down. As reinforcements arrive, Sam takes one last shot at reaching what's left of Ross's humanity. He reminds him that unlike so many others, he never took the super soldier serum, not out of fear but because he wanted to be better on his own terms. He tells Ross it's time for someone to see him for what he really is, especially Betty. Sam's words finally break through. Little by little, Ross regains his human form. Later, Sam is informed that Stearns is being transferred to a more secure facility before heading to the hospital. He makes a stop to visit his old friend Isaiah. Meanwhile, news outlets confirm that the treaty has been signed, marking a major step toward restoring order to the nation. At the raft, Ross, now a prisoner, receives a visit from Sam. Sam acknowledges that despite everything, Ross deserves respect for owning up to his actions and stepping down from office. He also informs him that Japan has accepted the treaty. Ross, blunt as ever, asks why Sam is even there. Within a calm tone, Sam replies if they couldn't see the good in people, neither of them would be here. He'd stay longer, but there's something else he needs to do. Betty has decided to visit Ross. With regret in his voice, apologizes to her. The outing they had planned won't be happening anymore. Elsewhere, Joaquin has recovered, but his spirits remain low. He jokes that unlike Sam, he's never been knocked out of the sky and dropped into the Indian Ocean, like he's untouchable, but Sam tells him it's not about being perfect. It's about not failing the people who believe in him. Pressure is crushing because there's always the doubt. Is my best ever going to be enough? Joaquin, however, is proud of his friend. Once he only saw heroes on TV. Now he stands beside one he admires, Sam, because he never gives up. Sam tells him to stay ready and have his suit prepared, because despite everything, Ross was right about one thing: the world needs the Avengers. The movie ends, but then a post-credit scene. We see Sam visiting Stearns in his cell. Stearns smirks. He tells Sam he's seen it in the probabilities, that every so-called hero who believes they're protecting the world is living in an illusion. Do they really think they're the only ones? That this is the only world? He warns soon they'll find out when they have to protect it. Not just from their enemies, but from the others, and that's how this movie ends. Thank you for watching our video, and don't forget to comment, like and subscribe.